Welcome, everybody. We're so excited that you guys are all here to join us today. So I know some of you know us and some of you don't. So for those who are joining us who don't know us, I'm Danya, and I'm the Family Program Manager at jHUB. And these are my helpers today. This is Ruth, and this is Zeev. And I'll let Allie introduce herself for anybody who doesn't know her.
Hi, I'm Allie. I'm the PJ Library Young Family Engagement Ambassador. And I work with young families and do events for PJ Library. We're the fun book people.
So we're here today getting ready for Shavuot. And I don't know if everybody knows a lot about Shavuot, so I thought I'd just give a little bit of an overview. So Shavuot celebrates the giving and receiving of the Torah, and there's a number of traditions that go along with it. It's also a harvest holiday, and so part of what the traditions that go along with it. Sometimes people will do studying because the connection to the Torah. So sometimes people will do like all-night studying. And there's a lot of actually fun things that you can do with that with your kids as well. As with that tradition, you might not stay up all night, but it's like a fun time to maybe watch a late night movie that has like a educational value that's being taught. And that's like one way to sort of connect to it. Some of the other traditions that go along with Shavuot are eating dairy, which is where the Blintzes come in. So we will be doing a special presentation, and I hope everybody has all the things that they need to go along with learning about how to make Blintzes. Part of the idea of eating dairy comes from there's a few different ideas of where it comes from. Some of it is the idea of the milk and honey, the land of milk and honey. We connect it to that. Other people, because it's part of a harvest holiday, that a lot of things this is when dairy was being produced, and so that there was like it was accessible, the dairy. So that's where some of the ideas of where dairy comes from, eating it for this holiday. And today we're gonna start with reading a book. Allie's gonna read a story, and then we're gonna move on to learning how to make Blintzes all together. So I will hand it over to Allie and let her read our story today.
Okay. Thank you, Danya. So today we're going to read Sadie and the Big Mountain. Can everyone see okay? Sadie loved school. She's getting ready to go to school. She goes to Temple Bethel. She loved the Hebrew songs they sang during music, the tall climbing gym they played on outside, the feathery red hats in the dress-up corner, and the stacks of smooth wooden blocks on the toy shelf. Oh. She loved the boys and girls in her class, and she especially loved her teacher, Maura Sarah. On Monday morning at circle time, Maura Sarah said to the class, "Friday is Shavuot, the day the Jewish people received the 10 Commandments." She told them how Moses climbed all the way up to the top of Mount Sinai. When he came down 40 days later, he was carrying 2 tablets with God's law, she explains. What a big mountain that must have been, thought Sadie, to reach all the way up to God. I don't think I could ever climb a mountain that big. This year, said Maura Sarah, we We will spend the week getting ready for Shavuot, and then on Friday, Rabbi Jamie will lead us on a hike up our very own Mount Sinai. That sounds fun. Maybe some families are going hiking this weekend or taking a nice walk outside. All the children clapped with excitement. All except Sadie. Sadie hated hiking. Her hiking boots always hurt her feet. Her backpack was always too heavy. And there were never enough snacks. And she sounds like my children. Anyway, she was sure that by Friday she would have a stomachache. On Tuesday, Maura Sarah taught the children how to make walking sticks. Moses carried a big staff which helped him get up to the top of the big mountain, she said. The walking sticks will help us when we climb. That's a good idea. Sadie decorated her walking stick with pink paint and red glitter. But she thought to herself, I'm sure I won't need it. I could never climb a mountain as big as the one Moses climbed. Anyway, I'm sure by Friday I'll come down with the chicken pox. Oh no. Those are when you get little red dots all over your body and they itch. It's no fun. I don't think children get them anymore. On Wednesday, Maura Sarah explained that the 10 Commandments teach us how to get along with other people and God. They tell us not to steal or to lie, to listen to our parents, and to celebrate Shabbat. My children just left just when they needed to hear that. We need these rules to get along and to help each other. Okay. Does that mean the other boys and girls would help me if I have trouble climbing the mountain, Sadie wondered? I could never climb a mountain as big as the one Moses climbed. Anyway, I'm sure by Friday I'll have, what is she gonna have now? Oh no, poison ivy. Another itchy one. On Thursday, the children made batter and filling for the, guess what, Blintzes, yay! We're making Blintzes. They're gonna eat their Blintzes at the top of the mountain. As they stirred the eggs and the cheese together, Sadie thought, I love Blintzes. Me too. But I don't think I can climb a mountain as big as the one Moses climbed. Uh-oh, what's she gonna come down with now? She was sure that by Friday she would have the flu. Oh no. Let's see what happens. On Friday morning, Sadie woke up. She checked her body. Do I have any chicken pox, any poison ivy? Nothing. She did not have the chicken pox or poison ivy. Did she have the stomach flu? Nope, she didn't even have a sniffle. There she is, she has a mirror, she's checking her body. When Sadie arrived at school, Rabbi Jamie and Maura Sarah were waiting in the classroom to lead the children on a hike. We're getting ready. Everyone was wearing sturdy shoes and carrying walking sticks. Everyone was so excited, apart from friends, and she worried. There she is. She's all excited. All the classmates are excited. And she's a little worried. Oh no. Rabbi Jamie saw how scared Sadie looked. She knelt down beside her and asked what was wrong. I don't think I can climb a mountain as big as the one Moses climbed, Sadie whispered. But Sadie, said Rabbi Jamie, you're good at climbing. You have a walking stick to lean on. Your friends will be there to help you. And don't forget, the good part, we'll have Blintzes to eat when we get to the top. And there she is, Rabbi Jamie's helping her. Rabbi Jamie took Sadie by the hand. Come outside with me. She pointed across the playground to the mountain they would climb. It was the hill right behind the synagogue where children played after Shabbat services. That's our Mount Sinai. See the big hill? Why, it isn't such a big mountain at all, Sadie exclaimed. Rabbi, that mountain's not big enough to be Mount Sinai. Actually, explained the rabbi, Mount Sinai was not a very big mountain. It wasn't even the biggest mountain in the area. God chose a small mountain to teach us that anyone can climb high enough to reach God. Sadie knew she could reach the top of Mount Sinai, and together she and her classmates climbed to the very top, giggling and skipping all the way. Yay, Sadie, she did it. And look, they're having a picnic. And they're eating delicious Blintzes, which we are about to make. So, Danya, take it away.
Okay. Great. Thank you so much, Allie, for reading that wonderful story. So now we are going to make Blintzes. If anybody has questions while we're going along, just type it in the chat, and either Allie or Leah will read it out to me, and so that I will be able to answer any questions. If you are just watching, that's fine. If you're also in the process of making it with us, you should at this point make sure that your oven is on at 350, like preheat your oven while we start making the batter. You're also going to be needing, we're going to actually be frying up the Blintzes first to like make the crepe dough, and then we're going to be rolling them and putting them into a pan, and then they're going to go into the oven. So both of those things are going to need to be happening. So the other thing is you're going to need a bowl, either a fork or a whisk. You're going to need some measuring cups. It's not a very terribly hard recipe, so we're going to get started with the wet ingredients. So we're gonna start with the eggs. So for the crepe dough, which is like the wrapping for our Blintzes, it requires 2 eggs. I recommend having a separate bowl besides the bowl that you are mixing everything in, so that in case you get any shells in, it's easier to take out. If you have somebody who's old enough to crack an egg, you can have them crack the egg, or you can crack the egg for a friend, and then they can dump it into the bowl. Do you want to crack an egg, or do you want her to crack both the eggs? Okay. All right, so you dump. Okay, dump it in. All right, and so then we're going to crack a second egg. And while the egg is being cracked, we're going to have our other helper here start mixing the eggs together. All right. If you get any egg on your hands, take a moment. You might want to go wash them off. Do you have any eggs on? So
I do have egg on my hands, so I'm gonna go wash my hands.
Good
all right,
job, Ruthie.
So Zeev here is mixing up the eggs. They don't need to be made all fluffy and everything. They just need to be mixed. And then we're going to be putting in 1.5 cups of milk. So again, if you have more than one helper, I highly recommend you could take a cup. If you have 2 helpers, you can, do 3/4 of a cup and 3/4 of a cup. You have 3 helpers. Split it into 1/2 cup each so that everybody has a turn to put something into the bowl. All right, so Zeev, you can pour that in, and then you can keep mixing, and then we're going to give Ruth a turn to do the next one, and in total it's 1.5 cups. I'm just splitting it so that everybody has turns to pour things in. Okay, and then because we like to take turns here, we're also going to let Ruth have a turn stirring. Okay, so now it's Ruth's turn to stir. And it is, again, doesn't need to be stirred all that much. We're already going to move on to putting the flour in. It's 1 cup of flour. Again, because I have 2 helpers here, they're each going to put 1/2 cup in. Okay. Yes, then you can mix. So the other thing that's happening while they are mixing this dough, and it's going to be a very thin dough, and we want it to be a thin dough, is that normally I do this on the stove top, but so to make it easier to show you guys, I have an electric pan today. So we're gonna put this on a medium heat, and if you have a non-stick pan, you probably don't need any oil. If you don't, I would definitely recommend putting some butter, some oil. You maybe have some cooking spray. You don't need a ton, just a little bit to help keep it from sticking. I'm also going to warn my helpers that this is going to get quite hot, so we're going to be very careful over near the hot pan. So we're going to keep mixing that so all the lumps in the flour are mixed in. And as you're mixing, you'll be able to see that it's a pretty thin dough, thinner than your pancake dough. Because when we put it out into our pan, we actually want them to be really as thin as possible. When I first started making blintzes, sometimes the first ones, I didn't quite have the idea of that it should be different than a pancake, and I was just sort of putting the batter down, and you really have to either, if you have the skills to pick up a pan and sort of like swoosh the batter around to like make it go out, or as you will see, what I do is when I'm actually putting the dough into here, I literally then take my spoon and move it around. Although I have a square pan, it'll still end up being round. All right, how is our mixing going?
I think it's probably thin enough now. Yeah.
Okay, so just to make sure that we really got the lumps, I'm just going to do a little extra stirring, but then you can also see, like, it's very, very liquidy, the dough. All right, so already I just turned this on and it's warm enough. You need it over a medium heat. It's not terribly hot. We're going to move this out of the way so it'll be easier to see. So hold on as I move that. Okay. So I'm just going to take a spoonful of the dough, and hopefully you're able to sort of see into my pan here. And I'm putting it down, and then I'm taking my spoon and literally just sort of spreading it out. You're going to want it to be pretty thick, thinking sort of like a tortilla, like that's sort of the size that you're going for. But you also want it to be thin, so you want to make sure that you're sort of taking your spoon and spreading it out. Okay, so we're going to, the first one always takes a little bit longer to cook, just as our pan is heating up, but it does actually cook pretty quickly. I don't know how well you're able to see, but already like it's starting to cook. And I can actually start flipping it already. So some people like them a little bit browner, some people like it not as brown. Flipped it already. And so we're gonna keep making, so one batter will make between 6 and 7. And we're gonna do this, and at the same time that I'm cooking, we're also going to work on the filling. The filling is also very easy. We picked an easy recipe so that nobody would feel too challenged, and that all of our helpers would have jobs to do. All right, so before we get started with the filling, I'm gonna actually take this out and put another one in. That's how quickly these start going. So I'm just putting it over on a plate over here, and I'm gonna put another one in, and then we'll get started on the next part. Again, just sort of spreading the batter around so that it stays sort of in a circle, but also thin enough, a little bit thinner than pancakes. Okay, so as that's cooking, we're going to get started on our next thing. So you need a bowl, a spoon or a fork, and so the ingredients we're going to need is the cottage cheese. What's nice is it's actually an entire container of cottage cheese, so you don't really have to do any measuring. It's one full container. We need 1 egg again, so we're going to ask our egg helper to crack another egg for us, and she's going to crack it in there, and then she's going to put it into that bowl. Yeah. Oh, you need it here. Here's them. Well, you can, because we only need 1, so you can put it in there. That's fine. All right, put this there. It looks like for us, it actually cracks. It so Z's gonna keep mixing it. It cracked really on its own, so it doesn't need a lot of mixing. He's gonna keep mixing that. And then after that's mixed, and again, doesn't take too long to mix up your egg. After it's mixed, we're going to open up the cottage cheese and dump the entire container of cottage cheese into our egg bowl. So I will have, you can use the fork to, and then we're going to mix that all together. All right, give our other helper a turn over there. 1 more mix is being said over here, so definitely always learning about how to share responsibilities. All right, so after the cottage cheese and egg gets mixed, and originally actually Blintzes came from Eastern Europe, and there are actually a few different ways of saying it. Blintzes is actually Yiddish. It used to be made with like farms cheese and other things, because cottage cheese was not what they had on hand. And cottage cheese actually is a very Americanized version of this Eastern European tradition, because cottage cheese is something that we have here. And then at some point, even it went from people making their own blintzes that you could then buy blintzes in the store, and we sort of come full circle. It's become now more of a thing that people want to try making these different types of dishes themselves. So that, yes, that is great. So now it's time to add some sugar. So again, this recipe calls for a 1/4 cup, but because I have 2 helpers, I split it, and each of them is going to put in 2 tablespoons of sugar into here so that everybody has turns. But the recipe calls for a 1/4 cup of sugar. All right, so which one of you is going? It does not have, so one of the questions they just asked me was, does it have to be exact? It doesn't have to be exact, especially if you tend to like things a little sweeter, it's okay if it has a little bit more. If you tend to not like things as sweet, it's okay if it doesn't have as much. Yeah, you can mix that up. The other thing that's really interesting about this particular recipe that I'm sharing is that the batter has no sugar in it. So it could, although we're making the inside sweet today, and that tends to be the tradition, you can actually put a savory filling in. So you could take the same cottage cheese and add broccoli and like onions and put a totally savory filling in. Yes. Yeah, you each get to do 2 tablespoons. So that's one of the neat things about our dough recipe here is that you could actually take it, you could go sweet or savory. Come on, let's keep going. Okay. All right, we're gonna finish putting the last bit of sugar in. All right, let's let Ruth put the rest of the sugar in.
I already did both.
Oh, you did both of yours. So I turned this one a little too early, but it's not a big deal because they're thin enough. They cook pretty quickly. All right, are you guys done?
We are done with the filling.
Okay. So you can, for all of our friends in their own houses, you can wait till you're done with all of your crepes, sort of the shells of our blintzes, or you can start if you have little hands that are ready to like move on to the next thing. You can have them get started. So the next thing that we're going to do, we're going to clean off our surface just a little bit to make some room over here. So this leaf here, we're going to move the sugar out of the way.
Mommy, do we still have more of that last stuff?
We do. Hold on. So the next part is the filling. So we're going to take one of our pancakes and we're going to put we're going to take one of our crepes, pancakes, whatever, we're going to take some of our filling. Actually, you know what? I realized I missed a step. Before we start filling, I need to make sure I've prepared where we're going to put the crepes, our blintzes, after we're done. So I'm actually going to move this out of the way so that I can give these guys their next job. The next job that they have is actually to put some butter in our dish. So the best way to put butter in a dish is to grab a paper towel. You can each have a turn doing it. It can be soft or hard butter. You put a little on the paper towel and just smear it around. Leave some for her to do as well. You may do some. And you also make sure to do the sides. So I forgot that step, but before I have them fill the crepes, it's important to know where I'm going to put it after I'm done. So, all right, so now it's Ruth's turn to do the sides. This is for when we put it in to bake. Okay. All right, so that was some great preparing our dish. Now we'll have somewhere to put it after we're done. So we're gonna just move our dish over here to get it out of the way. And we're gonna bring this back. Our crepe and our filling. And it's not so different than like making a burrito. We're gonna put some filling in the middle. I'll let Ruth do that over there. I tend to be an overstuffer. So if you like to have a lot of filling, put a lot in. It's gonna go into this baking dish, so if it comes out, it's not gonna like hurt anything. It's gonna end up getting solidified. Yep, that's good. And how about you wrap the next one? I'm gonna show everybody what to do first. Ruth, or Z, will you hold the dish up just a little bit so people can see? So we're gonna take the ends like this, and then we're going to fold the sides. So basically, just like wrapping a burrito. And then we're gonna flip it over and we have our blintz. We're gonna take our blintz. Yes, as it was noted, it's dripping because trying to show everybody it gets a little bit messier. We're gonna take our blintz and we're gonna stick it in our pan. I'm actually gonna stick it the other direction. And we're gonna put like 3 this way and 3 this way as we keep wrapping. So I'm gonna let my helpers over here keep wrapping them. Yes, you can do the next filling. Okay. And we have just a few, maybe 1 or 2 more crepes to cook over here. Yeah, you could probably put a little bit more. Again, Z was asking if that was enough, and I was saying put a little bit more, but I always tend to put a little bit more. I like quite full blintzes. Do you need some help? You're doing great. Okay. And then we're just gonna flip it over and put it into the dish. Now we'll let Ruth do 1 more over here. So then we're gonna, as we finish making all of the crepes and wrapping them, you're just gonna, and if you end up like you have a little bit, you have like 7, but your dish only really holds 6, just shove another one in there. It doesn't matter too much about like how much space they need once they're in their baking dish. So I would not worry. And it's forgiving. You know, if they don't look beautiful, they're still gonna taste delicious, because I'm excited that my helpers got to help me, even if they're not the most gorgeous blintzes that have ever been made. So we're having a little trouble over here, but you know what? It's no big deal.
We have a question.
Yes, what's the question?
The crepes won't turn into circles. How do we make them better circles? Or does it matter?
All right, so they're not turning into circles. The best way that I can sort of explain for doing that is when you put the batter down, is really taking the spoon and using the spoon to sort of create like the outline of like the shape you want of the circle, and like moving the batter with the spoon, because they can be quite thin. Does that sort of, and like I needed a little more batter over there because I didn't have enough thing, and then it sort of made it into a circle just by taking the back of my spoon. Does that help explain it? I'm actually going to make this, I don't have much batter left, so I'm actually going to make this one even a little bit bigger just to sort of use up my batter here.
Does it need to be a circle if it's not an exact circle? Does that
No, it doesn't. You can do it really like, it's a little easier because it's able to fold it over, but you can also use a rectangle or whatever shape you have. Again, as you can see, ours are not looking beautiful over here, but they will be just as tasty. So the other thing is, again, this recipe is a sweet filling, and that is traditionally what Blintzes tend to be very sweet, have a sweet filling. Again, they're made with dairy. We're putting a dairy filling into them. In a few minutes, I'll show you some ideas for toppings. But one of the things that we were talking about earlier today, to thinking about different ways that you could do Blintzes. What's neat about this recipe with no sugar in the actual like crepe dough is that you could actually do a pizza blintz if you wanted to. Because there's no sugar in here, you could fill it with sort of a ricotta cheese, mix, and then put like sauce on the top. So you could sort of be creative and think differently with your Blintzes. You don't have to go sweet. It looks like there's maybe another question.
Yeah, how long do we bake it for at 350?
We bake it for 30 minutes. So they're finishing this up, and I'm going to, so then what's going to end up happening is they finish this up. You'll see that we're going to end up with, I think we actually ended up with exactly six Blintzes in our baking dish. You think we have 7?
There's one still there.
And then I'm going to show you what they're going to look like actually when they come out of the oven. So give me a moment to.
This is really hard. It's not going together.
All right. This one is still a little warm. Don't worry.
Mommy, fly. Oh, it's gonna be pretty messy. Mommy, fly. Oh.
Yep, you can keep. So I wanted to show
The magic of TV.
this. They actually don't look all that different. You can see this is the one we're working on right now, but the liquid is sort of coming out everywhere. So this one is the one we're going to put into the oven right now. This one was pre-made, and this is what it looks like when they come out of the oven. And what I wanted to then share is this is all the liquid is all like baked together now. And then I have a few ideas and suggestions. We do not have any fresh fruit in the house.
Wait, real quick, Danya. How brown should they be before filling?
I have a variety of brown, like just lightly brown, but it's actually, if you start seeing that it's cooked, you don't need to get, you don't have to worry about it turning all brown. Like the first one actually was browner because it was just heating up. The other ones actually are much lighter, which is not a problem because you'll be able to see when the batter is not wet anymore, it's cooked, you can flip it over.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, so this whole dish will now go into the oven and we'll bake it for 30 minutes at 350. Take it out. I highly recommend eating them nice and warm. They're delicious. They're also You can also put them away and save them for later. These were made yesterday. We pulled them out, and I'm going to actually serve these and just give you don't have to.
Can you use skim milk for the milk?
So you can use whatever milk you have. That is not a big deal. The truth is, in our house, we only have whole milk, so that's what I use. But you can use skim milk. It doesn't make really that much of a difference. If that's what you normally have in your house, that's what you should use, because that's in fact what your taste buds will be familiar with and be fine with. So I have just a few. I didn't have any fresh fruit in the house, but some of my suggestions, I did have some frozen blueberries. So that is always a nice addition onto a blintz. We also had strawberry jam in the house. So you can also just take some jam and stick it on the top. If you like just the plain cheese, go for it. I meant to have chocolate sauce, but I didn't have chocolate sauce. I highly recommend dousing some chocolate sauce onto a blintz. That's actually quite tasty. And so these are how to make blintzes for Shavuot. So you're welcome to make them and eat them today. You're also welcome. This will also save. You could make this and put it then in your freezer and pull it out on Shavuot, or you can make it twice. And I also recommend experimenting. We put cottage cheese in, again, partly it's a simple recipe of something I thought you would all have at home. Some people like to add cream cheese or ricotta cheese. Again, when we were talking earlier, we were thinking, oh, we could do pizza blintzes, goes totally savory. There's really no right or wrong. I'm always about experimenting, and I recommend it highly. Are there any other questions? Were there any other? Oh, I can't. What?
Yeah, that's all I see for now. If anyone wants to, we'll give everyone a minute if you want to type any other questions, but they look delicious. I have all my ingredients, so I'm going to make them right now. I know like when I make blintzes, I do like a blintz souffle. I have a recipe.
That is another thing. So sometimes after you've made the blintzes, it definitely was a big thing, particularly when people would buy the blintzes, like the frozen blintzes.
Yeah, I use frozen.
To take the frozen blintzes and you put them in, and then you add an egg, like dairy mixture into all of your blintzes and make it into like a souffle like that. Also delicious. Again, no real right or wrong way to do it. And really, this is one of my favorite holidays because I love dairy, whether it's cheese or cheesecake or ice cream. I'm always looking for a great excuse to be told to make some type of dairy treat. So
yeah. What are some other filling ideas? Like you said, cream cheese or ricotta, any other?
So I've also, sometimes people will make it with just a fruit filling. It would still be part of your dairy treats because the batter has the dairy in it, but you could just put the blueberries, or you could make like an apple compote. Depends on like what fruit you maybe have in the house. You could fill it with fruit. Again, that's going with a sweet, going a sweet direction. You could also take the cottage cheese and add the egg, but instead of adding sugar at all, I've also done things where I've added broccoli and spinach and onions and garlic and gone a totally savory route. And because the dough isn't sweet, you can really take it either way with what you might fill it with. So there's definitely a lot of possibilities, and I definitely recommend like thinking creatively, asking kids what they think a good filling might be. You could actually even make the whole crepe and fill it, like spread Nutella in it and not then rebake it, just, wrap it up and eat it like that. You can even put ice cream in it. Again, you wouldn't go then bake that. Part of the second baking here is because we have the egg, the cheese and egg filling. But you could put ice cream in it and create an ice cream blintz. Again, no right or wrong, and I definitely totally recommend getting creative.
Sounds good. Thank you so much. Any other questions from anyone? You guys, thank you, Ruthie and Zeev. You guys did such a good job helping.
Yes, thank you to my helpers, and thank you everybody for coming. This was so nice to get to spend the morning with you making blintzes.
Yes, and happy Shavuot.
Happy Shavuot, everybody.
Happy Shavuot. Happy Shavuot.
And we'll see you again soon.